Welcome to the first episode of Strictly Jazz Sounds, a new podcast that aims to talk about all things jazz and, yes, listen to jazz. I'm Steve Browngen. On this episode, I have a conversation with pianist, composer, band leader, and internet entrepreneur Emmet Cohen. Emmet has attracted millions of fans the world over, not by traveling the globe, but by appearing on YouTube and Facebook every Monday night since the world shut down in March 2020 because of the COVID pandemic. It began with Emmet and his trio streaming a live performance on his iPhone from his apartment in Harlem. That's in what's called Uptown in Manhattan, New York City. Today, he has an entire crew setting up the show and working the show. In addition to that, Emmet has invited many performers from the New York jazz scene, along with others in the extended jazz diaspora: Patrick Bartley, Bruce Harris, Samara Joy, Christian McBride, Nicole Glover, Benny Benack III, Veronica Swift, and many, many others. The legacy musicians include Joe Lovano, Mary Stallings, Houston Person, Albert Tootie Heath, and George Coleman. The results have been nothing short of historical and amazing. As a result, Emmet has been recognized by the Jazz Journalists Association for what is considered legendary and visionary streaming of live jazz. Emmet and his trio, which includes the very talented Jamaican-born bassist Russell Hall and the ever-delightful Kyle Poole on drums, who is also a co-producer with Emmet, they perform jazz music that stretches the entire century of jazz history, from stride to swing, from bebop to contemporary improvisation. Emmet embraces the entirety of jazz, and his trio serves as the bedrock for the journey every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. on Live at Emmet's Place. On today's episode of Strictly Jazz Sounds, I have a conversation with Emmet about his show, Live at Emmet's Place, the challenges doing the show, the dreams he holds for it, and the impact he hopes to have on jazz as an art form. But first, we were gifted with 2 tracks from his latest recording, Uptown in Orbit, which can be found on Mack Avenue Records. We're going to listen to the first track, Fingerbuster, by Willie the Lion Smith. The liner notes on his 1958 LP, The Legend of Willie the Lion Smith, it can be found on Grand Awards Records. Duke Ellington has never lost his awe of the Lion's prowess. It quotes Ellington as saying, Willie the Lion was the greatest influence of all the great jazz piano players who have come along. He has a beat that stays in the mind. And that beat was called stride piano. Today, Emmet Cohen does stride like nobody does stride. Check out Emmet on piano with Russell Hall on bass and Kyle Poole on drums. Fingerbuster arranged by Emmet Cohen, composed by Willie the Lion Smith, on this first episode of Strictly Jazz Sounds. caught up with Emmet when he did a 4-night stand at the famed Chicago Jazz Showcase. It was a Friday morning of his weekend residence. He was in a hotel room speaking to me on his laptop computer. I wanted to know the story behind this gift, and I considered it a gift to jazz fans all around the world. How did they decide to hang out during the pandemic, and these were early days in the pandemic, and play jazz? I put the question to this remarkably talented 32-year-old Emmet Cohen.
The live stream, it happened in a swirl of uncertainty, and we had just gotten back from Winnipeg, Canada, and that was the last gigs we did before the shutdown, and we weren't sure if we were going to get back or what. It was kind of a crazy couple of days. We made it back to New York, took a couple planes with the band, and one by one we watched all our gigs peel away. Had great stuff, and had a big show in the Appel Room with Freddie Cole. A bunch of stuff that he obviously passed on, and a lot of stuff that I won't be able to get back. And so I think we were all feeling, a different version of like, this is bad in a whole lot of ways. But I got this call from Derek Kwan, who's one of our favorite promoters, and he used to work at Jazz Lincoln Center, and now he's at the Lead Center in Lawrence, Kansas. And he said, "Hey man, you're supposed to play here on March 22nd or March 21st, 2020. If you do a concert, just live stream or something, we'll give you the full fee for the night. I think the world needs it. And you guys probably could use the support too." So he paid us the fee that we would have made in Kansas and said to just do something. So I picked up the iPhone and I put it on, rested it against some books. And Russell Hall and Kyle Poole live really close together in Harlem. We carried the drums down the street and up the stairs. And I live five floors in the building without an elevator. That was the beginning, and we played, and people really loved it and needed it, and it was like a place for people to come together in a time where there wasn't much hope. And so that was the beginning of Live from Emmett's Place. We just got together and we played a concert, and we found that the world really needed it.
You have had a lot of people in your crib, Emmet. I've seen folks like Christian McBride, Samara Joy, Patrick Bartley, and Joe Lovano. Man, you have had half of the New York jazz scene in your apartment. So how do you decide who arrives on Monday night in Emmett's Place?
Well, first we talk amongst the band. Who do you guys want to play with? Who should we get? That's always how I run my band. What do you guys think first? And I think that always has the best results when everyone's kind of thinking together and on the same page. But eventually it came to me in three waves. One was like, jazz master, someone like McBride or Joe Lovano, who may want us to do us a solid and come hang with us and play with us. Then there was the people in our generation who mostly started out with inviting people our age, just because of the health concerns and everything. They seemed to be the most liberal with those proceedings, and that included people like Veronica Swift or Cyril Aimé or Samara Joy, Benny Benack III, Patrick Bartley, Bruce Harris, Tavon Pennicott, Godwin Louis. Those are the people in our generation. There are many more who we've been building with for the last 10 years in New York almost. So it was 8 years at that point. And wanted to, feature us with our generation. And then, now I'll be 32 in May. There's a whole crop of musicians who are underneath, who are amazingly talented and bringing some new lifeblood into the music, and to introduce audiences to new musicians as well. So it came in 3 layers eventually. It ended up being a snapshot of the New York jazz scene. That's exactly what it was, but in a very natural way. I mean, I've been living in Smoke Jazz Club and Dizzy's at Smalls, at Mesro, Village Vanguard, Blue Note, Birdland, Fat Cat, which is now called the Cellar Dog. I've been living in these clubs for 10 years, hanging out, playing with these people. It's just what we do. I had a weekly gig at Smoke Jazz Club for many nights, many Tuesday nights, for about 6 years, where I was playing Hammond B3 organ, and everyone on the scene knew that if you came there, you could come sit in with us. And that's the kind of climate that I like to create, and try to build some community around that. And I think that was a good warm up for what Emmett's Place became as well. A weekly place to come and have a musical communion and invite anyone who needs the music. And that's what it was about for me. It became a New York snapshot, and then there were other layers that kind of became involved. In order to do this, you need to raise a substantial amount of money to pay everyone involved. It's a massive crew: video, sound, piano tuning, feeding everybody. Down to house cleaning. The house is destroyed afterwards. And then of course, I didn't even count paying the musicians. So fundraising became a big part of what I would do on a week to week basis, and realized that it was a symbiotic thing, that people really wanted to contribute and really wanted to help put that New York jazz scene on the global map, and help those musicians who needed it most in that time. And hundreds, if not thousands, of people stepped up to show support in the last couple of years, and really shows me how if you put something into the community, if you try to offer something pure and from the heart, that they respond, and it happened in a very symbiotic way. We gave and we received, and they gave and they received, and it continues.
It's Monday morning. You've invited your guest or guests. Take us through the day on what you do, what your process is, all the way up until 7:30 p.m. airtime.
Well, many people know I usually start my Mondays by writing a newsletter. And I'm not a natural born writer. So it's something that has been a good practice for me to write a note to everyone, and in that time, I would try to maybe say something uplifting about what was going on in the world, or we went through a lot of moments in 2020. We went through as a world, seeing the killing of George Floyd, which became part of the fabric of what I thought we should bring awareness to, and I think jazz plays a huge part in civil rights, equal rights, justice. So then the newsletter actually developed not only to be a healing kind of pairing with the music, but then also for the other world events. And then we kept seeing world events. Now the war in Ukraine, where people are distressed, and the music heals. And so the newsletter is designed to sometimes connect world events, to connect stuff that's going on, to comment on various things that people are thinking about, and let them know that our music has something to do with these things, and that the music is designed to heal. And so that's something that I try to say in the newsletter. Also, what's coming up, what we're doing, how you can support. So my Monday morning starts with that, with writing prose, and formatting it and trying to send it out and making sure the sponsors are right. And I have a little team of people who help me with that stuff now, but I try to write it myself every week. And by the time I'm done with that, it's almost noon, and the piano tuner comes at 4 p.m. So I'm lucky if I can get outside for a minute and if the weather's nice, or get a little something to eat, or clear my mind, or have a coffee. I'm big into yoga as well, something that's helped me tremendously in the last 6 years. It helps me when we travel, and when I'm bouncing around between time zones, and when I'm sleeping on a red-eye flight and have to get up and perform. And it helps me clear my mind for performing as well. So, and my body. So that's something that I would try to get to on Mondays as well. But then, life throws things at you, and you have to deal with whatever comes. And
So the moral of this story is, don't watch how the sausage gets made.
Yeah. Everyone wants to know how the sausage is cooked. Yeah.
But you know, we all get some kind of sustenance from this for our moods and for our evening. My wife and I eat dinner watching your show.
And what I love about the show is that everyone interacts with it in a different way. And some people sit down and they're silent and they watch it and they're taking every note. Some people are work. People write to me and tell me. Some people work and do their work while they have it on the background. Some people eat and watch it, like you just said. Some people have family time with their kids, and have videos sent to me of 2-year-olds saying Kyle Poole and stuff like that. And it's been a thing for family bonding, and it's the same way we play in a lot of different kinds of venues. Classical concert hall where you can hear a pin drop is different from a jazz club where people are hanging out and maybe they're eating. Maybe it's a dance that we're playing and people are dancing to the music, or a speakeasy and everyone's kind of chilling and talking. So there are a lot of places and ways that the music exists, and it's cool to do the live stream and know that people are able to create their own fantasy world around whatever is happening on screen. I like that.
Kyle and Russell, their music is phenomenal. You know, I watch you interact. I watch your faces. I watch your cues. I get a sense of the communication. Emmet, you turn your head and smile at Russell. Russell and Kyle bob their heads. Talk about the dynamic that's happening among you three.
The dynamic is very similar to our personalities, and I think that we all have so much respect for each other that the number one thing that we try to remember is to listen, and to ingest, to always know what's going on at all times. And they're two of the most perceptive people and empathetic people I know. We always talk about this in master classes. It's all about choices, and we know we're together. We know that music is one of the most powerful forces in the world. We know that this is not the most important thing in the world. It's not life or death, and that we can approach the music with humor. If we mess up, no, it's not a failed surgery. We can smile and use that and keep moving in a different direction. And it mirrors life. It's meant to be imperfect. It's meant to encapsulate all the different emotions and all the different feelings that you may pass through your body. You're allowed to put those out in the music. You're allowed to express yourself in those ways, and I think we really approach it as equal parts. 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3, as far as the decision making and choices go. And obviously that ebbs and flows too. There are times when I'm feeling very confident in my choices and decisions, and I'll lead very much. There's other days where, especially on the road, I've driven 4 hours and we get there and I'm like, whew, I'm tired. I don't know if I got this tonight. And Russell will step up and make more decisions and take the music in a way that has my back. And I think we're constantly readjusting, and it's this interesting thing with the menage a trois, right? With three people, where there can be internal dialogues going on between two people, and someone can be zoned out, or someone could be supporting that, or someone could be listening in the conversation but not saying much. And there are infinite combinations that we try to get after, and ultimately we try to do something new with the repertoire that we have each and every night. And on top of that, try to fill the world with some joy and some hope, which we believe to be two of the main ingredients of Black American music.
Let's talk about your repertoire. You play a wide range of music from stride to classic to hard bop, swing, contemporary improvisation. And no matter what it is, you can't swing. Talk about the repertoire you have. How do you decide what you're going to play?
Well, we've spent 10 years together in New York City in various combinations, playing with various people. Russell's spent a lot of time with Wynton Marsalis and Branford Marsalis, and Michael Muenzo and Jonathan Baptiste and so many others. Kyle is on tour with a lot of those same people, also Cecile McLaurin Salvant. They also both have their own groups and their own ways of thinking about music. Kyle's a producer, and he writes and orchestrates music on his computer and in the recording studio. And he's a pro on Pro Tools and all that stuff. And Russell likes to sing, and Russell's steeped in Jamaican music and studying sea shanties. I have a background in classical piano. We come from such diverse places, and I think that we bring those things to the music, but we also share a love of the 100 years of jazz. And that's everything from Fats Waller to Jelly Roll Morton to James P. Johnson, Willie the Lion Smith, all the way to into the bebop era of Bud Powell and Thelonious Monk, Barry Harris, and these guys we got to see like Barry and Cedar Walton and Kenny Barron, and we've checked out Herbie and the way that Miles and the first quintet play and the second quintet, and we've Horace Silver, what his concept was. There's just so much out there that we love genuinely. So we try to access a bit of everyone and spend some time with their concepts, and then let it flow naturally through our music. So I have no problem playing a Wynton Marsalis composition and then turning around and playing something by Monk, and then playing an original, and then going way back and doing a Fats Waller medley, and then returning and maybe doing one of Russell's compositions, or maybe then we do play a little bit free and we kind of improvise collectively until we get into blues. And another thing that's helped with that is playing with the masters, and we've spent a lot of time playing with the masters and talking to the masters. Jimmy Heath, Judy Heath, Benny Golson, George Coleman, Houston Person, who I'm with in Chicago this week, Sheila Jordan, Mary Stallings, some of the older vocalists as well, learning how to accompany and seeing how they put together their sets and how they think about music. There's so much out there. My time spent with Ron Carter has been most educational, perhaps of all, and playing with Buster Williams and seeing the lineage there. There's so many lines to be drawn, so many connections to be made, and for me to just take in all that information and sit with it and think about how to put that together, and also not think about it, just to do it. And we really love the concept of Roy Hargrove too, who would just add pieces and songs and play his music, but play his peers' music as well, and play stuff from the masters. And he knew every tune, and he would just get on stage and he would just live DJ the set from all of that stuff, and however he was feeling that night, he would just go in that direction. And we have our core repertoire, but now I love to invite guests and expand and learn from everyone, and just keep it as open as possible.
Talking about the guests, what kind of process do you go through to make a selection on who's going to be on your show each night?
There's certain people that I wanted to document with, and I wanted to get a lot of the people that we had a vibe with over the last decade, and document what we do with that person. And a lot of the guys that I mentioned earlier, we played with in many different scenarios, and I wanted to try to show what we were working on all those years. Felt like we've been preparing for this moment for a long time. We know a lot of music. We have a lot to say and a lot to share. And then also the practicality of it is that I was trying to get these things sponsored. So if it's a musician that people liked and respected and knew about, then that would help generate sponsorship so that we were able to pay that musician. So it was a balance between what people wanted to see and who we thought people should see, and who we thought would make a good candidate for playing 2 hours of music in the house, and who we thought we could bring something new out of, and who could teach us something. And just a giant brainstorm. And we have a friend named Fumi, who I always say he acts as kind of the A&R for the for Emmett's Place, a jazz club online, and Fumi has been there every week since the beginning. Maybe missed 2 or 3 in 90 weeks, and he's been hearing jazz for 35 years in New York City, and knows all the musicians and knows the vibes and the energies and the way that they flow and interact. And it's been awesome to have Fumi in the house, guiding us from a non-musician's ears, but a very important musical voice nonetheless.
This is the pandemic, so that surely there have been somber type of weeks that you've had. Tell us about that, and tell us about the high spots. What were some of the greatest moments that you have experienced during these 90 episodes?
We haven't had too many somber weeks, but 2 of the episodes that really stood out to me were the couple times that Patrick Bartley came. He, I think is the genius of the modern genius of the saxophone, and we've played together a long time. He went to high school with Russell, and we really brought something out of him, and he really brought something out of us that was special each time he came. And also Sean Jones was one of my favorites as well. I had known Sean for a long time. We had never really played together. He came there and just brought such a vibe and such a good energy. There was even a moment during that where we were playing so hard that the bookshelf collapsed off the wall.
Yeah, I saw that.
Sean and Patrick were 2 of my favorite episodes, and for the next record on Mack Avenue, I decided to put them together. They hadn't played together, and so to use Emmett's Place as kind of a bouncing off point for realizing that these are 2 of the musical voices that spoke to me, and then I think that we amplified as a trio and put them together. They had never played together before. And to make that pairing for our next record as some special guests. So that we've recorded that in the winter, and it should be out in the fall.
That was the title track to Uptown in Orbit by Emmet Cohen, who was on piano, Russell Hall on bass, Kyle Poole on drums, and Patrick Bartley on alto sax, with Sean Jones on trumpet, on Mack Avenue Records.
Patrick always brings it. He always brings it, and that was a culmination of what we did in the apartment. People were like, "Look, we want to see it live," and I was like, "I want to bring it live." And for me to be able to then take Mr. Bartley and put him on the stage, out in front of us, people gravitate towards him. He's a messenger of something greater in the universe, and so I've realized that a lot of my job now is to organize and to set up situations where other people can shine, where people can connect to the core of and the essence of the joy and the freedom that a Patrick Bartley would represent, it inspires me to work hard every day.
Emmett, it is not hard to see the glow that is around you when you are around others, but even more importantly, how they perceive you in a real positive light. I was wondering, how would you want to be perceived by the broader public over the next 25 years?
I do hope that people look back on this time and say that they were healed by the experience of spending week after week with us in the house, that their lives were enriched, that the sense of community helped them through an otherwise trying time. It's funny because I don't know what 25 years is going to look like. I'll be about 56 years old, but I hope that we can take Emmett's Place and continue to evolve the message and the brand into something that's useful for people and that will continue to help and elevate different musicians. And I'm big into NFTs and the metaverse and all that stuff. It'd be cool to have Emmett's Place be a place in the metaverse where there's a jazz club called Emmett's Place, and people can watch online for all over the world, and there's music 7 times a week, different bands, and we're able to program that and have a space where people can be together for all over the world and in a 3D environment watching these musicians. That's kind of a dream and a goal. Who knows what the technology is going to look like, but I'd also love to continue to do more education, and I'm very inspired by Barry Harris and the way that he developed his online teaching from his in-class teaching. The way he did it on Zoom was an amazing thing, and there were a couple hundred pianists that got together each week for his Tuesday class, and they would play for him and they would talk about music, and he would spend a couple hours with them, and that inspired me to start Emmett's Place Education, which is a series of master classes for now, where people can sign in on Zoom and maybe interact with their favorite musicians. And to keep everything free is also important to me, so that there's no barrier to entry, and that people can access this in far corners of the world. If they want to learn about the music, they can sign on and ask Benny Benack or Patrick Bartley or Cyril Aimé or Kyle Poole or Russell Hall a question, and hopefully that can inspire them to work harder in their craft. So that's a few different directions that I want to take it. It also might be cool to make a record label from this, and to help other people put out music and everything like that. So, I have a bunch of ideas, and hopefully in 25 years we won't be looking back, but we'll still be looking forward.
One last question, Emmett. What does your landlord have to say about the shows on Monday night and all that noise, all that carrying up of the equipment and the playing?
Well, the neighbors are not happy, but I've tried to come to a compromise, and I think we're going to try to drop it to maximum 2 times a month now. And hopefully, they won't take me to court.
There is some closure to that little story. The interview occurred in May of 2022, and as of this podcast, Live at Emmet's Place continues to be streamed, but is now live from his Harlem apartment only one Monday per month. On the other Mondays, Emmet either has repeat performances from his place or provides a wonderful gift of a show performed on the road, and I can attest to these shows being a gift. My favorites include the 2021 and 2022 Twin Cities Jazz Festivals. They featured Patrick Bartley on alto sax and Bruce Harris on trumpet, respectively. Thank you for joining me in this first episode of Strictly Jazz Sounds, your place for a conversation of all things jazz. A special thanks to Mack Avenue Records for the 2 tracks used in today's show. They can be found on Emmet's new release, Uptown in Orbit. And to my good friend, Johannes Wallman, for his music that opens and is now closing the show. This is from a 2021 live performance in Madison, Wisconsin at the Wisconsin Union Theater. The composition is McCoy. You can find a recorded version on Johannes Wallman's latest release, Precarious Towers, which is on Shifting Paradigm Records. I also want to thank John Christensen, who hung in there the entire distance, Jane Reynolds, my wonderful partner, for more than 17 years on air on Strictly Jazz Sounds, and WORT 89.9 FM, Madison, Wisconsin's listener-sponsored radio station, my jazz home for over 20 years. You can listen to Strictly Jazz Sounds, the podcast, on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and at other locations where you listen to your favorite podcast. Join me again on Strictly Jazz Sounds, your place for a conversation of all things jazz. This is Steve Brown again.